Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, welcome to Odds and Ends. I believe this is episode number 100, and people have been asking me, are you going to do anything special for episode 100? Probably not. Sorry. It's just going to be another episode of Odds and Ends, but I guess we do have a few things that are a little bit different this time. So I do have a little bit of viewer mail. I've got a few little things I want to just talk about a little bit, about some events we've been to. Also want to talk a little bit about a upcoming giveaway we're going to be doing. That's something I've done the last couple of years around Christmas, is have a little giveaway. And I decided we're going to try to do something like that again. And it's coming, but I did want to kind of give you a little bit of heads up on it. Also talk about a few little upcoming projects that we're going to be having coming in the shop as well, because I think that'll be interesting to some of you. So let's get going. First off, Good of the Land Fest. This was back, it's actually been about a month ago now, and I don't think I've actually done an Odds and Ends since that event, but we went out to Lindale, Texas to the Good of the Land Fest. Justin out there, has the Good of the Land channel, put this together, and it's at a little museum that he is a part of in the Lindale area. And guys, it was an awesome event. There was over 1,000 people showed up for this thing. From what I was told, and the vast majority of those guys were people who were viewers of YouTubers like myself, as well as many others. And Justin did a really good job of recruiting some pretty big names in the YouTube communities to come into the event. I'm not even sure that I consider myself to be in that category, but there were some pretty big names, not only in the machining community, but in some of the other communities out there. We had a couple of really high-end, very well-known blacksmith guys that were there, as well as some homesteading type channels and just general maintenance and construction type stuff. So really good event, and I really enjoyed it. Probably my favorite part of going to these events is just having an opportunity to talk to my viewers, and it was really awesome. I mean, all day long on Saturday, I couldn't hardly take a step without having to stop and talk to someone that wanted to come up and see me, which was great. That was actually the reason I was there. That is the reason I wanted to go to this event, was to connect with my viewers, you guys out there, and I really had a very good time. Justin pretty much arranged it where most of the YouTube guys were not tied up doing demos and things like that, where we had time to actually spend with our fans. A few of the YouTubers did do a couple of demos, but man, like I said, it was just a really awesome event. Probably the other thing that I really enjoyed about that was the opportunity to kind of get to hang out with some of the other YouTube creators that are out there. It's always fun to kind of compare notes and see how other guys are doing things, and see what kind of problems people are having and how they're resolving them and so forth like that. So really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. Mike Wiggins from over at the Backyard Machine Shop, the two of us kind of rode out there together. He doesn't live too terribly far from me, so we rode out there together and kind of stayed together during the event, and then came back home. But awesome event. And actually a couple of the viewer mail items are going to be some gifts that I received from some other YouTube creators who were there, and we'll be going over that in just a bit. I mentioned the Christmas giveaway. I'm not going to quite spill the beans yet, but be looking for a video very soon that's going to have the details on this year's giveaway and how to enter for that. And I believe this year it's strictly going to be just a random drawing to find some folks. And we're actually going to have a couple of different prizes to be giving out, and probably going to be doing the drawing around Christmas Day. I just feel like that's an appropriate time to be giving something away is at Christmas time. So, and like I said, I'm going to be shooting a separate video on that. Hopefully we'll have that out in the next week or so that we can promote it for a while and give folks a chance to be able to get entered in for our Christmas giveaway from Vintage Machinery. And I also have a sponsor who's going to be helping out with that event as well this year. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, other thing I want to talk about a little bit is upcoming projects. I've been getting a lot of questions via email and comments and so forth. As I'm kind of approaching the end of my 16-inch Monarch restoration. I've still got some work to do, but my goal is that I can have that machine pretty much finished by the end of this year, if not by the end, very shortly into 2019, have that machine completely done and ready to use. And unless I run into some kind of major problem or something comes up that I'm not able to get out here in the shop and work over the Christmas holiday time, I should be able to get that knocked out. So I'm excited about that. And everybody's saying, well, what are you going to do next? What's your next project going to be? Well, I'm going to give you a heads up. Next project is going to be my metal planer, my old antique metal planer that I've had in the shop for a while, and I really, really am wanting to get that machine up and running. So probably in 2019, the plan is that we're going to start tearing that machine down, evaluating it, see what needs to be done to get it rebuilt, and try to get that machine up and going. It's going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be a challenge anyway. Probably the biggest challenge is going to be it's just such a big piece. I mean, it's a very heavy machine, and just going to be very, very difficult to handle the parts on. And until I get into it, I really won't know exactly what we're going to have to do to get it back up and going. But that's going to be my next big project. But before I can do that project, I got to do another project here in the shop, and that's going to be to build a gantry crane. Because that machine is so big, I've got to be able to lift the parts off of it, and I really just can't do it. It's not really something, even if I had a crew of people, it's just not practical to handle parts that heavy. So I'm working on right now, and we're designing a gantry crane that I'm going to actually build in the shop. We're going to fabricate it right here in the shop. And again, that's something that I hope to be working on, if not over the Christmas break, pretty much right there in the beginning of next year, get that done, because again, we got to have the gantry crane before we can start working on the metal planer. Another little interesting project we're going to be having up is a little collaborative project I'm going to be having with Mike Wiggins over at the Backyard Machine Shop. And Mike's already been involved in somewhat of a collaboration. He has what he calls the John Doe Shaper, which is an old metal shaper. That's a small one. And he's working on restoring this antique metal shaper. It's a very old one. Very likely it could be pre-1900, if not sometime around the turn of the last century was when it was made. His ultimate plan is that once this machine is restored, he's going to give it to Justin out in Texas for the Good of the Land museum out there, or I guess it's not the Good of the Land museum, but where he is involved with, and have that machine where it can be set back up and used and also displayed in front of the public. So if you haven't been watching that or following that restoration, I'll put a link down below to to Mike's channel, but he took the machine up to Brian Block up in Kentucky, and Brian actually used this horizontal boring machine to do some milling on it to kind of get it cleaned up. Next step is going to be doing some scraping to start scraping it in, and that's going to be what I get involved with. Mike's going to be coming down, I believe, sometime this coming week, and we're going to be starting the process of getting that machine scraped in. And Mike's going to do a lot of the work. I'm going to be kind of helping him because I've got the big surface plate and I've got the scraping equipment here at my shop. But anyway, the two of us are going to be working on that project coming up together. So anyway, just a little bit of news there about some things coming up. And with that, let's look at some viewer mail, and I also got a new tool acquisition I want to share with you guys as well. So let's zoom in here and do some viewer mail. So at the Good Land Fest, I had a chance to meet Eric over at Hand Tool Rescue, who has a YouTube channel where he does all kinds of really cool stuff, restoring old hand tools for the most part. And he actually had a series of videos a while back, really interesting series, where he recreated this little antique wrench. He had one, and he took it apart, basically saw how it was made, and made up a batch of these custom built using some modern technology. And I think he's been selling these, but he was kind enough to actually give me one to bring back home, which I was kind of excited about because I really enjoyed that little series of videos that he did on these. And hey, it's just a cool tool. It's a cool antique tool. So it's basically, again, just a little adjustable wrench, but it's a modern version of an antique classic. And I want to thank Eric for giving me one of these, and I'm going to have this one, use it. I put it in my toolbox, and it'll probably actually end up at the museum a good bit because it just looks appropriate when I'm out there working on stuff to be using a tool like this. And the nice thing about this one is a lot of these old ones that you find, they're beat up, they're worn out. The jaws are not nice and square and crisp anymore. This one here is in pristine condition, so I'm really excited about the opportunity to use that. But anyway, I want to thank Eric for giving me this nice little wrench, and if you haven't already, I would encourage you to go check out his YouTube channel. I will put a link down in the comments below or down in the description of the video, so you can click down there and go over to his YouTube channel and check him out. So thank you very much, Eric. So another YouTube creator that I got a chance to meet up with was Adam Barton, who's over at the Solid Rock Machine Shop Incorporated. He, again, is a YouTube creator, has a channel. I will put a link to his site as well. And I actually had a really good chat with Adam, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about some stuff I'm doing with him in just a minute. But first, Adam made up some of these little half-inch boring bars. He has them actually in several different sizes. And this is something that he's, again, a product I think he's actually making and selling. But he was kind enough to give me one, and this is a custom built boring bar, of course used on the lathe. Takes a standard little insert to go in here, and one of the neat things about it is that on the back side you have a slot for another cutting tool, because unfortunately what happens with these a lot of times is you might damage the end down here, and when you do, hey, you just flip it around and go to the other side. So it's a really nice little feature to have that in there and as well. But anyway, Adam, in addition to making these boring bars, he does a lot of surface grinding work. I have really enjoyed watching his channel. I've actually been really paying attention to some of his surface grinding work and learning an awful lot from him. He is a tool and die maker by trade and has a home shop as well as a shop that he works at. But he does a lot of stuff at home, doing some really cool stuff, and does some great teaching and talking about proper ways to do surface grinding, which is definitely an area that I need to learn more about. I'm doing a good bit more of that, but I'm still kind of learning and feeling my way around in there, and I've really picked up a lot of neat tips from over at Adam's website at Solid Rock Machine Shop. Now, going back to the boring bar, we were talking out there, and when he showed me this boring bar, and I told him, I said, you know, I got to make a threading bar for a project I got coming up. Let me show you a little bit of details on that. This is the lead screw that goes in the cross slide on my Monarch lathe that I'm restoring, and this is the nut. This is a bronze nut that fits up on this, and that's what screws the lead screw back and forth. And the bronze over time has become very worn, and when you put this on there, there's a good bit of backlash in there. And I've decided I'm just going to make a new nut. But this is kind of an oddball thread that we got in here. This is 7/8 inch outside diameter, but it's a 4 threads per inch Acme thread. This in here, full-size Acme thread, and that is by no means whatsoever a standard Acme size. It is far from being anything standard. And I think that of a 4 Acme thread pitch, you're going to probably be up 1.25 inches at least diameter before you get to something this big normally. But they wanted that 4 pitch, so basically when they turn the handle one time, you're moving the cross slide in 250 thousandths, so 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch is basically what it is. So to do this, I mean, I could get lucky, I guess, and find a tap or something on eBay, but it's very unlikely to find that exact pitch. So what I'm going to have to do is single point thread this over on the lathe. So I'll drill a hole through here and have to take a cutter that comes inside this and basically pull that cutter through and thread it from the inside. But it is, again, it's an Acme thread, so I'm going to have to basically make a custom boring bar. And because of the diameter of this, you see this 1/2 inch boring bar barely fits in here like it is. And with the insert that goes on here and the depth of this cut that it has to make, it's going to be a rather unusual threading bar. And it's probably only going to get used one time unless I have to do another one like this sometime or another. And I was talking with Adam saying, hey, how can, you know, get him some ideas, because since he's been making some boring bars, getting some ideas on how to do that. And we talked about it. I think we're going to actually use a little threading insert similar to this one. This is for a 60-degree thread. But it's going to have to be about this size. And again, that insert, though, is too large. The insert itself won't even fit in the hole, you know, at all. So we're going to have to do some modifications to it. And at the end of the day, Adam said, you know what, let me just make a threading bar for you. So he's actually going to do a couple of YouTube videos on making this threading bar, and he's actually been working on some little grinding some fixtures and stuff to do some work holding for this already over on his YouTube channel. And I suspect that here in the next week or so, you can go over there and watch Adam make the boring bar, or threading bar rather, that we're going to use to actually cut this internal 7/8 inch 4 Acme thread. So excited about that, excited with working with Adam. He's just a top-notch guy. guy, very, very in tune, knows his business very well. And like I said, I've really been enjoying watching his channel and have been learning a lot from him. And if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to go check him out as well. And I'll put a link to his YouTube channel down in the description as well. Next item here comes from Doug Pripps, who's up in Rockford, Illinois area, and Doug sent me a brand spanking new Square D drum switch. So this is like for wiring in a reverse on a lathe or something like that. And he told me that he had ordered one for a job he was doing, and he got this one right here, and once he got it, he realized it was not really the one he needed. He had to order another one, but for whatever reason, it was not something he could return. He said, I don't have a need for it, so he was kind enough to send this along to me. Like I said, it's brand new in the box, never even been used, and I really don't know what this will end up going on, but I guarantee you that at some point in time, I'm going to have a need for a drum switch, because I have, over the last, I don't know how many years, I've probably, had to find 4 or 5 of these for different machines I've restored. So anyway, this is something nice. I'll put it on the shelf with my electrical stuff, and when the need comes up, we should have it right here ready to go. So anyway, nice little gesture there. Thank you, Doug, for thinking of me, and we will definitely find a home and put it to use at some point in time. So thank you very much. Next, we got a couple of books that were sent in by Alexander Shapira, who lives up in New Jersey, and he sent in these 2 nice little books here. The first one over here, this is an Audell series machinist toolmaker's handy book, and if you're not familiar, Audell's back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, they made a ton of kind of correspondence course type books where you could get a book and basically do a training in different areas. And I actually have a bunch of their books. They have a bunch of different series. I don't have this one. I do now, but I refer to these a lot. I've got some on steam engines. I've got some on some carpentry. I've got some on electrical work, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're just really good reference books. And this one here is particularly on machining and tool making. So I'm going to be looking forward to looking through this one and seeing what all's in there. I'm sure I'll be referring to it at some time or another. Then I got Machine Tool Operations Part 2. I don't have Part 1, but he did have Part 2. And this is on drilling, planing, milling, and grinding. And again, this is another one that I'm really looking forward to. 1922 there on that date. Let's see if it's got another date in here. Yeah, this one was printed in 1946 is when that print was, but the copyright's 1922. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this one as well. I haven't really dug into it yet. Particularly, they got a section here on planer work, and since we're going to be restoring the metal planer soon, this one will be a lot of fun to look at and figure out some things we got to be working on with the metal planer, because I've used the metal shaper a lot, and the metal shaper and the metal planer are very similar machines, but I've really never used a metal planer, so I'm really kind of anxious to learn more about that. So anyway, a lot of other nice information in here as well. So thanks a lot, Alexander, for sending those along, and we will definitely get these on the bookshelf. And I love these old books. Lots of great information is in these old books, and a lot of it is hard to find on the internet because it's this old information. The information's still good, but it's not in formats that are necessarily electronic, so it's hard to sometimes find this kind of stuff unless you got the book on the bookshelf. And hey, I like a book anyway. I like to hold that book in my hand. So thanks, Alexander. Next item comes all the way from England, and this comes from Terrence Miles. Terrence actually sent this, had it shipped out to the museum. I was not aware this was coming. I got a call out there and said, hey, we got a package up here from you from England. So couldn't figure out what it was. And Terrence sent me a t-shirt here. Look at it, it says, warning, may spontaneously start talking about steam locomotives. Am I that bad? My children think so. Anyway, thanks a lot, Terrence, for sending that. It's a little bit on the large side, got a little bit of room in there, but we'll definitely make use of it, and I like it a lot, so thanks a lot. Next item here is a new acquisition for the shop, and this one I'm really excited about. This is a metal cutting saw. Some people call them a cold saw or cold saw, and I guess technically this probably is a cold saw, but it's a little bit different than some of the more standard type cold saws are slower RPM. This is a higher RPM. It's very similar to like a wood cutting saw, but it's slower RPM than a wood cutting saw. But I've been actually looking for one of these for a while now, and I've got a friend that has the DeWalt version of this, and I've used his saw quite a bit when I was making my base for my surface plate. I actually went up to his shop and used his, and it did a great job, but honestly, I was just not very impressed with the base and the clamping system on that DeWalt one. There's a couple of other versions of these out here, and I've actually been doing some research and trying to figure out which one I wanted to get for the shop. And interestingly, while I was at FabTech back in November, I was walking through the floor and walked by Morse, their booth that they had out there, and saw this one sitting out there kind of it was in a little case or whatever. They had it set up where you could try it out. And because I was looking for one, I went up there and looked at it. And I started looking. I'm like, man, I kind of like the way this one's built. It's got a much heavier duty base on it than some of the other ones that I've seen. It's got some really nice jaws in here to hold your metal. And so I asked the guy, hey, can I try it out? I went over there and started making some cuts with it. And I was really impressed with it. So long story short, we've got one in the shop now, so I'm very excited about this, and I'm going to do a couple little test cuts with this and kind of show you how it works. You know, I haven't had it very long. I've really just played around with it at this point. Time is going to tell as to how well this thing holds up. I have done a little bit of looking online and doing some reviews on these, and pretty much everybody that's got this particular model has liked it so far, and I'm very anxious to try it out. When we build our gantry crane project coming up soon, this thing is going to get a big workout in that project, and you'll probably get to see it being used a lot and kind of see how it goes. I do know that Morse makes a very high quality blade for these this type of saw. In fact, you can take their blades and actually put them on some of the other brand saws, and they from what I understand, they tend to hold up a little bit better than some of the cheaper blades that are out there. So let's put some different materials in here and do a couple of test cuts. So first off, this is the made by MK Morse Company, and this is their Metal Devil 14-inch metal cutting saw. And as you can see, when you pull it down, it has a guard. It opens that guard up, comes down, and we got a carbide tip tooth in here. They do make different blades for different types of materials. I have a blade in here for steel right now. And while this steel blade will probably cut pretty much anything, if you're cutting aluminum or you're cutting a thin walls or thick wall or thick steel versus, they do have custom blades for different applications. So I'm going to start with just some square tubing. This is what I probably will use it a lot for on the gantry crane. But you see, it's got, one thing I like about this is it has these jaws, and there's notches in the jaws up at the top that allow you to position this where it's not all the way down the bottom. It helps get a clean cut. And when you're doing something square like this, you actually can turn it up on its end, and by doing this, you actually have pretty much the same amount of tooth engagement as you cut through the part. Whereas if you're doing it flat, you know, when you're in the top, you're making a very wide cut, and then you kind of get in the sides, it goes down real quick, and then you get down at the bottom, and again, you got a big thick cut to go. So I'm just going to, I don't want to cut too much off of this because that's still a good piece of metal, but a little bit more than that. There we go. So we'll just start the saw up, pull it down. Easy peasy there. You saw how quick that cut. The nice thing is that, you know, when you cut this off, you can pretty much just pick it right up and handle it with your hand. It's not, you know, red hot. It's not like an abrasive machine. Makes a nice cut. You can adjust this. I actually had it set up to do 45s the other day. I was just playing around with it, and it made a very accurate cut. And it makes a nice cut as well. So anyway, there was on some square tubing. I think that's much faster than what you could probably cut through with a typical bandsaw. I'm going to take a piece of just round stock here. Again, I'm going to hook it up here in those V jaws at the top to hold it. You could put it in the bottom, I guess, but looking at a solid piece, I mean, that's probably 1.25 inch diameter roughly. There you go, cut right through that, no problem at all. Nice smooth cut. And next, this is just a piece of square steel. I'm gonna put this one down in the bottom. I could put it up in those V-jaws if I wanted to, but we'll put it down in the bottom and try it down there. Again, makes very quick work of that. So anyway, I'm really anxious to get some time to use this. I think I'm going to build a stand for it to go on where I can kind of roll it out of the way when I'm not using it. But so far, I've been very impressed with it. And I'll say this, guys. I posted some pictures on Facebook, and some guys are like, oh, I hate those things. They don't work worth the flip or whatever. Or I just would rather use my bandsaw. I'm not suggesting that this is an absolute replacement for a bandsaw. There's still going to be times when you need a bandsaw in the shop. But when particularly doing fabrication work where you're cutting tubing, you're cutting something up for welding or what have you, these things are awesome because you can make a lot of cuts really quick. The blades actually hold up pretty well. I've got a good friend of mine who's a professional fabricator who has the DeWalt version, very similar to this. And he did a big job, and he told me he made over 1,000 cuts with that, and the blade was still cutting. I think he finally went ahead and swapped it out, got a fresh one because it was starting to wear down. That is one of the concerns, when the blade goes on here. These blades are expensive. They're about $100. If you come over here and you just jam it down into your work, the blades are not going to hold up well. You got to be careful and take care of them. And I realize in some shops where you may not have the best of people working for you that really don't care, that may be an issue. But I do think that a saw like this has a good fit in a machine shop, in any kind of fabricating shop, any kind of shop, because they're really great for doing quick work, quick cuts. And in most cases, I think you can cut with this a heck of a lot faster than you can with a bandsaw. Again, it's not a total replacement for a bandsaw. I still think you need a bandsaw, but this thing here is really nice to have around. And a couple of guys that I know that use them in their shops, they absolutely love them. And I'm excited to have one in my shop as well now. And with that, I think we're going to pretty much wrap this episode up, guys. So Christmas is coming. My favorite time of the year, one of my favorite times of the year for sure. But one of the reasons why I enjoy Christmas, in addition to being able to spend time with friends and family, and it's just a special time for me, always has been. But what's also nice is that I usually get to take a couple of weeks off of work, and that means I get to have some time to come out here in the shop. So I'm really looking forward to having some shop time, be able to get some projects knocked out, hopefully get my 16-inch lathe finished up. I've got a small list of projects that I have promised to do for some viewers, and I haven't been able to get to them, and I'm going to really try hard to get those knocked out, at least, if not by the end of December or by the end of January, kind of get those knocked out before I get started on my next big project, just because I need to get those back out the door and back out the folks. But with that, that's going to be a wrap on this episode. As always, thank you guys for watching. Leave me some comments. Thumbs up are always appreciated. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. That's one of the most important things you can do if you want to help support my channel, is subscribe and then watch the videos as they come out. So thanks a lot for everything. We'll catch you guys next time around.